Hi, I'm Tyson Franklin, and welcome to this week's episode of Podiatry Marketing. With me, as usual, is Jim McDannald, aka Big Jim Mac. That's how everybody in the world knows you, Jim. So, how you doing today?
Yeah, world famous from Canada to Australia to the US. It's Big Jim Mac everywhere. No, Tyson. Things are good here. Things are starting to cool down. It's getting into Canadian winter time, but the things are just heating up here at the Podiatry Marketing Podcast. So
So, I think it's always funny when you say things are really starting to cool down, and for us, things are really starting to heat up. Yeah, we're hitting November. This is when you know you live in the tropics, and I absolutely love it. The hotter it gets, the better.
yeah, I'm to come visit you one of these Novembers in Australia.
It'll kill you. You wouldn't want to do it. Come in your summer when it's like up here, June, July, August, best time to be here. You can go either May, September is okay, but it's great. So what are we talking about today?
Yeah, so today we're going to talk about a topic that just came up on a call I had with a prospective practice owner, and that's about how to market same day no wait visits. I think this is a huge opportunity for podiatrists. Some people have either a little bit of an opening in their schedules or just want to provide a type of care that other types of clinics or hospitals can't. So big hospital systems may have some name recognition. Maybe they are kind of commanding and kind of dominating physician referrals, but they'll also have large wait lists. So it's a real opportunity for your clinic as an independent clinic to have more flexibility. Maybe you have some young associates in your practice that you want to kind of feed some additional cases. It could be a big competitive advantage. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about, I'll show you how podiatrists can use same day, no wait positioning for these visits to stand out, attract new patients, and fill their schedules kind of more consistently.
I'm looking forward to this because you're in a different part of the world. Your insurance system is different. So you're probably going to be, when you're talking about the same day, no wait, I'm sort of thinking your thinking on this is going to be maybe different to what's going through my head at the moment. So I'm interested to see what you unpack and whether I think is the same or I'm thinking completely different. So let it rip, get into it.
Yeah, so I'll say the first thing is, patients, especially in North America and I'm sure around the world, value access more than you think. There's been a big thing, especially in Canada and the US, where sometimes there's really long wait times in emergency rooms. So there's been a whole kind of newer cottage industry over the last 15 or 20 years, what we call these urgent care clinics have really kind of started to sprout up everywhere. So,
Okay. Yeah.
if you don't want to wait for, if there's people that are having a heart attack or people having, really kind of life-threatening things, those things are obvious that people go to emergency rooms, but different kind of private clinics, sometimes, large community clinic, hospitals are setting up these kind of urgent care clinics where maybe it's a nurse practitioner, or maybe it's a family medicine doctor, but you kind of go there knowing that you're not going to have that same kind of wait time. And you're going to receive some kind of care there, whether, they actually can treat the thing or they're going to send you a referral to go somewhere. But this really kind of opens up a huge opportunity. Like I said, sometimes when people go to either the ER or these urgent care clinics, they're just going to get a referral. If it's an ingrown toenail or it's a broken foot that they don't have expertise about. So I wouldn't say it's necessarily a wasted visit, but it feels like you're not necessarily getting the diagnosis and treatment started. You have like another hoop to jump through. So when patients have, foot or ankle problems, dietitians that provide these kind of same day or within 24-hour visits can provide solutions more quickly instead of, another hoop to jump through. Or if it's something that's non-urgent, it's something that, you can be seen and not have these long waiting lists, because a lot of these community hospitals or private clinics maybe have their own podiatry department, but if there's 200 primary care doctors and there's two podiatrists, they're going to get booked out so far that you're talking months away from getting to see a podiatrist treat your heel pain or your Achilles pain or something.
Yeah. I think it's also too, when you go into one of those emergency wards, and this is what I've heard from people, I've never been in one, that they said if you weren't sick before you got there, you're probably going to be sick by the time you come out. Because you might go in because you've hurt your ankle, or you may have thought you've fractured a metatarsal or something like that, and you're sitting next to six other people that presumably could have COVID or some other infestation, nits. They've got something that the chance of you catching something in some of those places is not good, and that's why people don't particularly like them. So
That's
having
great.
an alternative is great.
That's a great point. I think especially during the COVID era, there's a lot of kind of like almost self triage. It's like, is this thing that I have bad enough that I would kind of risk getting sick or risk getting
Yeah.
COVID, right? So like people were trying to weigh that balance. I would say even nowadays, people don't want to sit in the ER for a few hours. So if you said you might get sick. So, when clinics are highlighting these appointments available, this week or within 24 hours, it makes your clinic kind of the obvious choice. So when it's more convenient, reduce wait time, it's going to kind of outweigh maybe that some kind of brand loyalty or these large hospital systems are sometimes tied to, at least in the US, to a university. So it feels very prestigious. It feels like, a very trusted brand. But if you're providing convenience and reduced wait time, people are probably more likely to give you a chance and kind of happy to kind of jump in and see you within a couple of days as opposed to waiting those, weeks to see a podiatrist somewhere else.
Yeah. So and what you're talking about, this seems to be more probably a North American problem than it is in Australia, I'd say.
That's it.
But I do recall, I remember being in New Zealand, this was like 20 years ago, and one of the podiatry clinics there in Christchurch, and they had a certain amount of hours, and would have been from 5 to 7 p.m., 3 nights a week, was their walk-in like emergency care. So if something had happened to you throughout the day, you didn't need to ring up, just turn up at the clinic between 5 to 7, they were going to be open, and they would quickly triage you, see what needed to be done. Was there something they could do straight away? Or was it something they'd make another appointment for you, or would they send you somewhere else? And they were busy. And this is 20 years ago that they were doing this.
They're ahead of their time.
Yeah, they were way ahead of the time. I remember seeing it because I hadn't seen anything like that done previously. And I said, well, what do you do between 5 to 7 if nobody comes in? And they went, we always have stuff to do. There's paperwork, notes to catch up on, orthotics that need to be made. So they would spend that time doing that, but they were usually kept pretty busy.
That's great to hear. It's always good to hear those kind of like real world kind of examples of people who've been doing it for a long time.
So where do people start with all this anyway?
Yeah. So number one, I would say that people need to put the kind of same day or same week really front and center in the messaging. So whether that's on your website, making sure there's pages not only dedicated to that, but it's visible on your homepage, whether you're on your socials or on the kind of paid advertising that you're doing. It really needs to be a strong part of your message because if it's just a footnote, people are going to really recognize that, right? So you need to kind of make sure you're putting it out there and featuring it prominently, like on your homepage, on your Google Business profile, in your ads, adding phrases like, no wait, foot and ankle care, even to your signage, letting people even within your clinic as well, letting them know that that's available. Like we talked about many times in the past, people might know that you do ingrown toenails, so they came and saw you for that one time, or maybe you do orthotics, but they're not aware that the clinic does these either same day or within 24-hour appointments. So you need to really make sure you're spreading the word either through a newsletter or through these different channels I had previously mentioned. So this consistency of messaging is going to build trust. Patients are going to see you as that local expert with this kind of extra perk. So it's something that maybe depending on how popular it is, it's something that you might have to triage in the future. But if to begin with, if you still have openings in your schedule or things are a little bit light in the clinic, patients should be able to see and kind of hear this message everywhere to hopefully, fill up the clinic agenda a little bit more consistently.
Yeah, well, consistency is really important to get that message out there. But a couple of podiatrists I spoke to this week. One, I usually run the same thing past them, same question. If I rang your clinic 10 o'clock Monday morning, hurt my heel over the weekend, and I desperately need to see you, when can I get an appointment? And one of them said, oh, we wouldn't be able to get you in for probably 1 to 2 weeks. That's how long our waiting period, because we see so many routine foot care patients. I went, okay, well, you've just lost me. I'm going to start ringing around and see where else I can get in. Then I said, this other person I was talking to during the week, if I rang up Monday morning, same thing, when could he get in? They said, either late that afternoon or the next day, guaranteed. And I said, that's great. I said, let's go to your website. So I went to the website. I said, where do you let people know? And they said, I said, well, how do you do that? And they said, oh, we've got everything structured a certain way. I went, that is fantastic. Why can't I find that on your website? That you can guarantee a same day or next day appointment. I said, that is a big deal for people who are in pain. It's like the You smash a window. You don't want you want to see an ad that says we can come out within an hour to fix your window.
Yeah, absolutely. You have to let people know that it exists because like they don't, people are Googling things, they're searching around, but unless you have it really plainly spelled out for them, it's going to be a difficult thing. And this it kind of what you're talking about kind of builds into the next point is that you really have to make sure you're building that capacity into your schedule.
Mm.
You don't just want to kind of like make this claim and then get really busy or, you kind of overpromise and underdeliver is kind of a huge thing that probably makes people more upset. It probably is going to hurt your reputation and kind of the word of mouth is going to be very negative if you make this claim, but you actually can't follow through. So, depending on how big your staff is and what their capacity is, you need to make sure there's already, 1 to 2 rapid access slots each day. Maybe it's the right before lunch or right after lunch, or maybe at the end of the day. But this has to be something where you make sure you can deliver on that promise. So, hold on to those spots for, 24 to 40 hours before. And, can always kind of open them to routine follow-ups if they're unused, but make sure you're putting some blocks in your schedule if you decide to really make an effort of these kind of like same day appointments, because like I said, it's probably realistic for teams without major disruptions and overbooking if you implement this kind of into your schedule. But if you're just making these claims and not really making the capacity in your schedule or have the capacity in your schedule, like I said, people are going to be more than happy to talk bad about you because you weren't able to kind of live up to the promise that you made on your website or these other channels.
Yeah, and I know there'll be some people listening to this, and this is a conversation I've had with a lot of podiatrists over the years. When you explain this to them about the importance of being able to get people in quicker, sooner rather than later, and they'll also, oh, that would be almost impossible to do in my clinic. And I think as soon as you've got that mindset, it will be impossible for your clinic because you need to just know you can do it because there's so many other podiatrists I've taught how to do this and who are doing it successfully, having appointments same day or next day or 48 hours at the latest. You just got to make a decision that that's what you really want to do to provide the best care for your patients. And then it's put the things in place to do it.
Absolutely. Not only is it kind of your own mentality and the only kind of your schedule you have to think about, but you really need to make sure that the next point is kind of like train your staff to reinforce the promise. If it's kind of
Mm.
out there on your website, but it's not mentioned, maybe when they call in, having a kind of a very specific kind of front desk script, at least some talking points that people can, even if it's not someone that day, they're not looking for an appointment necessarily that day, but if they do call in asking for an appointment, having them say, we can see you today or tomorrow is kind of a good reinforcer. Maybe the people don't want to be seen that quickly, but at least you've told them so they know that now, and they might share that with their friends, their family, that there is a clinic that does have sometimes availability a little bit faster. So when you empower your staff to kind of triage urgent calls, whether it be something that requires an ankle sprain or painful ingrown toenail, you're able to kind of fill up these rapid access slots. So it's going to take a little bit of training and messaging from your staff as well. And but it's well worth it if you get some higher paid patients coming in the door in a short notice can really be significant revenue booster for your practice. So the message feels stronger when patients hear directly from a real person on the phone, right? Like if they kind of seen it on the website, but then it's reinforced by a real person, it's going to make a really big difference.
Yeah, and like you said, these rapid access spots, I know there's rapid access. I can't even say it. I'll do that part again. And I know what you mean, like having these spots available that people can get into. I know a number of podiatrists will say, they have a certain spot in the morning and in the afternoon so that their staff can catch up on their notes. And I'm going, really? You can allow time for your lazy staff to catch up on their notes. Why don't you have times available then for people who have a problem and want to get seen today or tomorrow? And if you've got those time for the notes, maybe those patients take priority first over note taking and teach your staff to just get the notes. And especially with AI now, there's no excuse not to just get your notes done. That's a different conversation altogether.
Absolutely. But there's a huge opportunities, like you said, to kind of get those notes done a bit quicker. But I think what you talked about, you have a real chance to, the last thing about what we talked about today is really like these rapid access or these quick access patients. They're going to be so happy that you have availability to see them. It's a real great opportunity to kind of build social proof about you and your clinic. When patients have these kind of wow experiences, they're in pain. They were told by, the University of, I don't know, Tennessee's clinic that it's going to be 3 weeks until they can be seen, or they can go to the emergency room, or they can go to a urgent care clinic and then get a referral to that, podiatrist within their system or within, within that healthcare system. And they're in pain today and they wanted that ingrown toenail taken care of as soon as possible. When you ask these patients for a review, you're going to get a glowing review online. They're going to tell other people about you, the care that they had. So when you collect these kind of these testimonials around urgent access, they'll say things like, I was seen the same day and I'm back on my feet and I'm feeling great. Those things really translate well to online reviews, and to have someone look at an online review, see that and think, okay, that's the place I want to go. I want to be taken care of in a good way, but also in a way that's not going to be waiting around for weeks. So over time, your reputation for access becomes kind of a moat around the hospital competitors. That's the one that thing they can do. Obviously they have the name recognition. They have, a referral network that is sometimes getting harder and harder to kind of infiltrate because they have their own podiatrists on staff and their own, people that take care of foot and ankle pain. But if you're able to provide great care and a great access to these patients, it's a way to like be seen as different and as a really relevant and helpful choice when them or their family members are looking for foot and ankle care in the future.
Yeah, I really believe that whole thing about your reputation and building this positive reputation that you actually care about people, that you find spots from. And even if you say, oh, just got to move a couple of things around, but I'm sure we can get you in tomorrow, at least that to the patient, it lets them know that you care. Whereas the hospital will be, you are just a number. Yeah. And I'm curious, Jim, what have you got against Tennessee University?
I was thinking like Tennessee, Kentucky. I don't know, for some reason those states jumped in my mind, but I know that these big hospital systems, it's great they're bringing on podiatrists on staff, but these podiatrists are overworked. They're taking call, they're doing a lot of stuff, and some people in the private sector can help them out. I think that not only will the podiatrists that are overworked be thankful, but also obviously the patients that are getting great care from private clinics can also benefit.
Okay, I need to ask a question then, because people outside of North America is, if I was a patient and I contacted the hospital that was attached to, say, Tennessee University, and I see the podiatrist there and I might have to wait a week, do I still have to pay or is it free?
It depends on what healthcare plan you're on, right? There's all these deductibles. So like in the US, that's the big thing, is that actually before your healthcare plan kicks in, you'll sometimes have $1,000, $2,000 to $5,000 to spend before your healthcare you can actually get that covered, quote unquote, for free. It really depends on who your insurance provider is, the type of plan you have, the size of your deductible. A lot of like factors go into like whether you're able to see a provider there and what the cost would be. Because sometimes, maybe the cost would be the exact same by going in the network of going to, if you're referred to like, the University of Tennessee podiatrist, it may not be any cheaper than going to a private clinic depending on how big a deductible you have on your plan.
Okay. And if you don't have insurance, it doesn't matter. You're just going to get charged at both.
Yeah, you're going to get cash pay at both for sure.
Okay. So anything else you want to finish on this particular subject?
Yeah, I would just say that like this same day, no wait isn't just kind of like a trick or like a hack. I think it's something that obviously you have to put time and effort into, make sure you're, talking to your staff, you're building it into your schedule, but it's a real way to kind of position your clinic and kind of your clinic brand, right? I think sometimes we talked in the past is like, oh, you want to be a sports medicine podiatrist. Oh, you want to be, someone that sees pediatric patients. Oh, you want to be a surgeon. But, I've even talked to some podiatrists a lot about, about they live in a larger metropolitan area. I could just be like the local, kind of urgent care clinic for the foot and ankle in a way, which I don't know if anyone's listening to this podcast and they've heard someone that's actually, taken the plunge and done that full time. I'd definitely be interested to hear about it, but it's something I've had a conversation with people in the past about. So it's a way to position your brand, even if it's not what you do 100% of the time. It's still a way to build up goodwill and kind of build a positive reputation for your clinic, because it tells your community that you're accessible, you're responsive, and you're ready to help. So, for solo providers or small groups, this can be a real differentiator between you and that large hospital system. Because they can't match it, right? Just, that availability. So I would consider, leaning into this, same day, no wait visits, market it consistently, make sure it's in your messaging, and kind of watch and see how many patients choose you, because you solve kind of one of the biggest frustrations with any patient about healthcare, and that's waiting to be seen. And that's one of the biggest frustrations, in a day and age where, Google, Amazon Prime comes, the same day or tomorrow. We see our movies on Netflix and Apple TV on demand. The more you can provide this type of care for patients, the more like they're going to sing your praises, and the more they're going to be willing to kind of sing your praises to others as well.
Yeah, and I think especially if you're in an area where people can count the amount of podiatrists that are on offer. So, for example, like in Cairns here, there might be 10 podiatry clinics in Cairns. If there's nobody that's got this in their marketing, that they can provide a same day or next day guaranteed appointment, it's a missed opportunity. Because patients, where they go online, they might look at 5 or 6 different clinics before they make a decision. If they're in pain, they want to get in now. And I think that was one of the advantages I had with my clinic is we had guaranteed orthotics within 24 hours because we milled everything and made them all ourselves. We had same day appointments. We had guaranteed next day appointments. That was just a big part of what we did. And people could always get in. We just structured things the right way. And I think if I could do it, it means everybody could do it. You just need to make the decision that's what you want to do. And then be shown, maybe, if you can't figure out how to do it yourself, then you reach out to us and we'll teach you how to do it.
Absolutely.
Okay, Big Jim, anything else to finish up on, or are you done?
No, I think we're good for the day.